Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I know it's sacrilegious showing up like this from far away, obviously not at home, visiting family and friends for the weekend, but I couldn't stand away from the big news, and I think it is, and I would say it's kind of unexpected and crazy move from Yevgeny Prigozhin, the Wagner group chief, the guy in charge, and he's going to be punished by the Russian military unless the Russian military joins him in his mutiny. So what happened? Prigozhin refused, if you remember, to bring his mercenary group under the Russian military orders and authority, and he was the only, I think, how do you call it, private military organization or group that refused that. And now he started threatening the generals, the Russian generals, and it seems like they had enough and they move on to punish him. And they opened some criminal investigations on this. And I have articles from Reuters, I have from the Telegraph, I have from Sputnik to talk about it. The issue, the situation is very serious. That's according to the Americans as well. I don't know if he acts in the name of outside forces or authority, but nevertheless, we're going to find out. So let's go to the first article here. So let's start with Reuters, and this is from yesterday at 8 p.m. Russia accuses mercenary chief of armed mutiny after he vows to punish top brass. So this occurred yesterday when Russia accused these guys, and here are tanks and things going around. But I don't know exactly who those guys are. They didn't bother to mention. And it says Prigozhin says army bombed his man, vows justice. Moscow accuses him of calling for armed mutiny. Wagner chief takes feud with top brass to new level. Prigozhin earlier accused army of deceiving Putin. So it says here that Russia accused mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin of armed mutiny on Friday after he alleged, without providing evidence, interesting, Reuters, you remember how to be a journalist now, that the military leadership had killed a huge number of his fighters in an air strike and vowed to punish them. The standoff, many of whose details remain unclear, look like the biggest domestic crisis President Vladimir Putin has faced since he ordered So this will be the first thing. Second one, we go to Telegraph, and this is again from yesterday from 10 o'clock p.m. U.S. says Wagner Group is real and serious as White House consults allies. Well, maybe this is, we're going to discuss it. Is real like really, these guys are not talk to one another? I'm talking about the U.S., the Russian military, let's put it this way. I will just go straight to the thing. Putin and Prigozhin and the Russian military creating this serious problem within Russia will definitely scare the allies. Because if this can happen between these two guys, maybe could be that the Russian military could fragment. And if it fragments, then who's going to get nuclear weapons and who's going to do what? So that's one of the serious things. What if Prigozhin is backed by some, fraction of the military? And then what? You have a civil war with nuclear weapons. Okay. Joe Biden has been briefed on the chaotic situation in Russia, with US officials describing it as serious. So the president was being kept informed as Wagner mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin was accused by Moscow for launching an armed rebellion. Now what, are you going to support the freedom fighters? Is the US going to support the freedom fighters of Russia now? Prigozhin is going to become from a mercenary to a liberator. That's going to be crazy. Not. A White House National Security Council spokesman said, and I'm quoting, "We are monitoring the situation and will be consulting with allies and partners on these developments." So, yeah, in a different league, it says Steve Hall, former CIA chief of Russia's operations, said it was in a different league to Prigozhin's previous complaints against the Russian military hierarchy. He has no chance if he goes by himself. He said that this might look like a well-known Putin tactic where he turns people against each other in his own government, but this is a different league. That's correct. Most worrisome for the Kremlin is this promise, and I'm quoting, "We are all going to march these 25,000 guys to Moscow." That sounds very much like a putsch, like a coup. That's certainly why the FSB is involved. That's the security forces, KGB, whatever, former. And that's probably a direct link to Putin here. He would have been the one who said to the FSB, "You've got to go in and do something." That's got to be a lot of worry in the Kremlin right now. Well, and we go to this article right here, and where this is from 4 hours ago, today on the 24th of June 2023. Wagner chief in coup against Russian generals warns he has 25,000 fighters ready to end this mess. Well, you can't do a lot with 25,000. It's true, you can, but you can't fight a Russian army if they really want to screw you. The same with us here in America, where they say, well, we have our guns, and if someone, does something, we can defend ourselves against, I don't know, tyranny or something. Now, what guns you have compared with what guns they have, you like have BB guns versus, I don't know, bazookas and nuclear weapons. Shut the hell up, okay? Yeah, maybe then with yeah, maybe with that one, then in, I don't know, 1800s and so on, 1790 some. But nowadays, you're done. You done. So let's see what's going on here, though. So he says that he's gonna has 25,000 fighters ready to end this mess. Okay. Now let's go to the Russians and see what they say. They have a lot of articles here, and Putin showed up on, and he had a speech where he bring historical facts and tries to unite people and all that. This is the last article coming from Sputnik. I mean, how should I put it? Most recent, right here with Zakharova here. Russians urged to unite in face of Wagner armed mutiny. Earlier, the Russian Federal Services, FSB, opened a criminal case for inciting armed mutiny over statements made on behalf of the head of the Wagner Group private military company, Yevgeny Prigozhin, on Saturday, which is today. Russia's President Vladimir Putin denounced the mutiny attempt as a betrayal of Russia and Wagner fighters. Russia must display unity in face of the Wagner chief's armed mutiny attempt, as the enemy is only waiting for civil strife to tear the country asunder. I think that's correct, but what are you going to do about it? Russia's foreign ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova warned, and I'm quoting, "We have one commander-in-chief, not two, not three, one. And he called on everyone to unite. This is the main thing now. Only unity." That sounds like desperation here, I have to say. "Unity under the banner of the commander-in-chief," end quote, she stressed on the Telegram channel. Commenting on the latest development regarding Yevgeny Prigozhin, the Russian foreign minister spokeswoman stated, "Everything that Russia has been fighting for will be shattered if the people of the Russian Federation yield to the temptation to join the mutiny of the founder of the Wagner PMC, Yevgeny Prigozhin. And again, behind you lie the graves of those who did not begrudge their lives. Behind you are future generations. Today we are all tempted. Our strength is being tested. Do not give in," end quote. said Zakharova. These are not words of confidence. Though acknowledging that the temptation to put your own interest above the interest of the country and its people is great, she warned that succumbing to it will result in a crumbling of everything Russia and its people have been living and fighting for. We're going to go back to Yeltsin time. Yeah, I hope you like that. But some of them will be very, very wealthy overnight, and the rest will be very, very poor overnight. But those who will become very, very wealthy, they are all for it. And they all think, most people think, oh, I'm going to be the one who's going to be very wealthy. No, you're not, because the system is going to be a gang system. Not that it's, now it's perfect in Russia, but we want to talk about that too. Zakharova remarked that the enemy, the Kiev regime, and the Western forces using Ukraine to fight a proxy war against Russia are only waiting for civil strife between the Russians to be fomented. But this will not happen. Zakharova insisted, adding, don't count on it. Well, we'll find out. On Saturday, which is today, President Putin took account of the situation in the wake of the Wagner mutiny attempt. And I'm quoting Putin, as President of Russia and Commander-in-Chief, as a citizen of Russia, I will do everything to defend the country, to protect the constitutional order, the lives, security, and freedom of citizens, end quote, he said in his televised address to the nation. Putin described Wagner PMC chief Prigozhin's arms mutiny attempt as a betrayal both of Russia and the Wagner fighters themselves. He addressed Russians, the military and security service, as well as those who, I'm quoting, have been forced down the path of armed insurrection, oh my, by deception and threats. I think America will join, the US government will join Russia in the fight of any insurrection, or just when it's against some. And I'm quoting, if it's an insurrection. Now, this is an insurrection with weapons, not some, anyway. And I'm quoting, I appeal to the citizens of Russia, to the personnel of the armed forces, law enforcement agency and special services, to the fighters and commanders who are now fighting in their combat positions, repelling the enemy's attacks and doing so heroically. I know that. Today I spoke again to the commanders of all units. I also appeal to those who, through deception or threats, were drawn into this criminal adventure and pushed down the path of the grave crime of armed insurrection. Oh my, Putin said in his address. Putin emphasized that any discord must be put aside during Russia's organized ongoing military operation, special military operation. Prigozhin Armed Forces attempt, what do we know so far? This was 18 hours ago. So this article that I just had is the most recent. This is, they tell us, in connection with the statements, because he made the statements. The Russian National Anti-Terrorism Committee said FSB has opened a criminal case over calling for an armed rebellion. So I think things are, let's say, clear. Prigozhin has an army of, he claimed, 25,000 people, are called for marching to Moscow and punish some people. Well, you can't really do that, correct? Correct. Therefore, the Russian government, which is the legitimate government of Russia still at this point, decided to act like, imagine that, let's say, Blackwater, if someone have doubts and would like to do certain things, imagine that the former Blackwater private military company in the United States would say, well, we don't like the president, let's say, that time, Bush, and we're gonna just march to Washington and catch the, I don't know, the Secretary of State and the Defense Secretary and Chief of Staff and all that, and we're gonna just bring democracy and love. Well, maybe in some countries that sounds like democracy, like, I don't know, 2014 democracy kind of in Ukraine when something like this happened. You remember? Some with outside help, they entered and they did and blah, blah, blah in Ukraine. Now, this here, unless the military, the Russian military stays united, Prigozhin has no chance. He's going to create problems, but it has no chance of winning. If the Russian military fragments, then they have a big problem, that's for sure. The whole dynamic will change, including the operation in Ukraine. That's 100%. If some factions and they break away, Putin might be, I don't know, killed by some. It's going to be an internal strife here, and I personally don't think that Wagner group has any real power against the Russian military. I don't think that. Now, do I think that? Let's look at this scenario. What if this is a scenario? It's not. I'm not saying it happens or nothing, but if you're losing on a battlefield, let's say Russia is losing, and let's say the Ukrainians are breaking through over there, you want to create a situation in which you have everybody scared, so you can implement certain kind of policies that otherwise would be not popular, and unite and all that for what? General military, general how do you call it? Mobilization? I don't know, because remember when the Russian Tsar was at war and gave the peasants weapons. And the First World War, that was a mistake to a certain extent, because he armed exactly the people or some people that would take his head off. So he armed them, and under that thing, a lot of people have weapons that they should not have had. So in this case, I don't know if he is having a little understanding, creates a problem so he can arm his people for what? Destroying Wagner. I think the Wagner group will be threatened directly and say, okay, you either lay down your weapons, or we're gonna shit out of you with full force. And I don't know if it's gonna be a guerrilla war or what. It's just the beginning of this. But I think Prigozhin, if this is real, like, hey, really, why do I say it's not real? Or maybe I think it's not real. It's a possibility that they play a game for some other big decision that the Russian government will make, and I'm waiting. And then when the West are gonna shit their pants, they're gonna celebrate with one face, but with the other one will be, shitting their face, because they will thinking, God damn it, what if there's fragments and people get nuclear weapons, the military, and then what? We have to deal, as the Russian says, instead of dealing with one, you're gonna deal with 5 that you don't even know, and that's bad. We'll find out. I didn't expect Prigozhin, personally, I didn't expect this to happen. If it's real, if this guy really said, well, we're going to go over there. Now, on the other hand, I don't know if the situation in Moscow is as he describes. There are some elites over there, and Putin is kept to the, he doesn't know shit, and actually he's not deciding over there, he's not running the show. Therefore, he just sounds the alarm of, hey, there's these people actually in charge and they're not doing their job. Maybe that could be the possibility. And Putin just comes out and he has to say it, because, what's the name? Zelensky is surrounded by those masked people that don't actually follow his orders, but someone else's orders from their earpiece. So the same with Putin. Putin, if someone gives an order, Putin is definitely taken out. Do you think that those guys around him are listening to him? They are buddies, they eat together, go and do sauna and something? No, those are, at the orders of a security service. Who is that guy? Who are those guys? If those guys give the order, Putin is gonna go. So I don't know if Putin is a hostage. People, are you crazy? I don't know. I'm just, using, trying to think about it. Could be a hostage, and Prigozhin sounds the alarm. Hey, what's going on? That guy doesn't know what's going on, and if it's so, that means he's not in charge. So Prigozhin again starts something against the Russian military, which he has no chance. I don't think he planned. I mean, he made statements before, but I think what he said right now, it's always over the top. And I think he's going to get if the Russians stay united over there. Now, are there outside interests? Yes. Remember, the US helped Mujahideens and others, and then they turned around and formed this and then formed that, and then start fighting against whom? So it's not impossible that they will possibly try to contact this guy, but without telling us, because remember, for almost 2 years he was the criminal and this and that. I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow he's the angel and this guy will be the darling of the US media. I have no doubt that would change in one day. They don't need to build it. Just one day, they decide to say, call this guy the savior of Russia, and like they call Navalny or others, how he's the defense, the opposition. Yeah, okay, all right. So we'll see if this is real. Prigozhin is gonna go. Is gonna go, and I think they will decide not to fight. I think they will talk it out somehow. He will disarm, disband his things, and will be at Putin's decision. But if you remember, there was one thing that Putin said that he dislikes the most, and that is disloyalty, treason. So if this is disloyalty, so this doesn't show too much loyalty over there. He says shows loyalty to Putin, but not to the generals. But you heard Putin in his speech, if you listen to it. He blames Prigozhin for it. It's not like, you know what, you're my savior right here. I'm gonna pardon you. Well, the situation, I'm going to monitor it and see what's going on. Very, very important. If the Russian military stands, nothing happens. Prigozhin and his guys will be wiped out, or they will surrender by themselves, understanding that they have no chance. And the Americans and these guys cannot help Prigozhin with any, shipments or, parachuting weapons or something like that. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.